Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast. You're listening to the next episode. Today, we're going to focus on what it takes to be a start, run, and grow serial entrepreneur. We'll talk about some successes, some failures, and I'm sure we'll get a couple of stories from my guest, a real business owner, Patrick O'Donnell. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Let's go. Patrick, welcome to the show. You there?
Hi, Matt. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm here. I appreciate you having me.
No problem. So we've known each other for a few years now. Why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes, introduce yourself personally before we get into the business to the people that are listening? Who are you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll go back a ways. I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm talking to you from Indianapolis currently. Excuse me. Grew up in the Dakotas, and by way of Omaha, Nebraska. Moved to Indianapolis about 8 years ago is when we moved here. And so my upbringing was 2 large public corporations, right outside of out of college, Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I started my sales leadership career is really where that began, is as a technology company right out of college, transitioned into healthcare. And now I own a couple of businesses in the Indianapolis area. I'm sorry, you talked about personal. I'm going all over the place, Matt. So my wife Angie and I and my daughter Violet, we all live in the Indianapolis area. My wife is a dentist in the area, and my kiddo is she goes to the International School of Indiana. So
Nice.
that's my focus, is those two. They are my why, Matt, is really what it comes
Yes.
down to.
All right. And so now you also threw out the hint that you own a couple of businesses. Why don't you tell us about the 2 businesses?
Sure. So I have a business that I started in August of 2018. It's a fractional uh, sales leadership role. There's a company out of Fishers, Indiana, that started approximately 14 years ago called Sales Xceleration, and there are 120 reseller license owners like myself, 220 throughout North America. And so in essence, I own a reseller's license through Sales Xceleration, that I work with small to medium-sized business owners and their needs, with the focus on the sales department, leadership within the sales department. And then about the same time I started that practice, I joined a group of gentlemen here in town, and we own a historic tavern and pizza joint, I'll call it, down in South Indianapolis, that has been in our life since early 2019. So chased a couple rabbits there at the same time, Matt, but
Yeah.
that's my story, sir.
So you went out from college, you get a job, you kind of get into sales leadership. You decided at some point to leave the corporate life and go off on your own. What was it that led you to get out of the megacorp world?
Hmm. Well, and it was 2 large public corporations my entire adult work life, basically, right up to the point we moved here. And there's a couple things. I had that entrepreneurial drive of doing my own thing had been there since I was 17, 18 years old. So I'd always had that scratch, always wanted to itch that scratch, uh, or scratch that itch, excuse me. And so couple that with the timing of our move. There were some things that I experienced in the corporate world that I just didn't want to have to experience any longer. And so, along with that personal and professional move, physical move from Omaha to here, that was kind of my spot at which, okay, I'm going to go for it. Uh, because I just simply don't want, I don't want, I want to create my own future, is really what it came down to.
Yeah. It's not an uncommon situation where the people who are employed by a big company look around and say, you know what, I don't know that if I can do this better but I can certainly do it differently. And that's what
Yeah.
it sounds
Well
like.
said.
That's sort of the seizure you had, like I'm gonna do this
Yes.
differently, which is weird because
Yep. Now's the time.
nobody ever leaves Omaha. I would have thought you'd have stayed there. The flatness, the cold, the
Okay.
gray.
Yeah, if there's one thing between primarily living in South Dakota, Nebraska, and Indiana, I seem to like, I have the Samson thing going on with my hair. So the fact that I'm attracted to the windiest places on the planet
Yeah,
is out
yeah.
of character. But yeah.
So so you decide you're gonna do your own thing, and
Mhm.
you start the business with Sales Xceleration as a, um, fractional sales leader. Um, but you're really, although you're a licensee, you're really starting your own business. You're required to build your pipeline. You're required to create revenue. You're required to find prospects. What are some of the things that you learned right off the bat that you didn't realize you had to know when you became self-employed?
Yeah. Um, my biggest, and this is more of getting to know myself better and in my journey to master self awareness. Uh, the if there's one thing that hit me square between the eyes, approximately 4 months into starting that my sales acceleration business, is is it's a whole different lifestyle. It's a lifestyle I didn't have any idea of, that entrepreneurial lifestyle and building your own business. And so it really, it took me waking up one morning and going, "Holy cow, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. I feel like I feel like my wheels are spinning when it comes to how I've done things compared to how they taught me to do things." And uh, so really, it was that transition from I'll call it a corporate mindset to that entrepreneurial mindset that really, that's what drove me right there, Matt.
So can you give me, so the people that listen to this podcast, right, overwhelmingly from Indianapolis,
Mhm.
typically new or aspiring business owners, right? And a lot of
Mhm.
them, I mean, there's a lot of big Fortune 100 companies that have people here in Indianapolis, and those people every once in a while they wake up and they go, I'm tired of being a cog in the wheel of the machine, and I'm going to go do my own thing. What can you give me any examples of things that you learned that, like, specific, like, my example, like, I've got a buddy who works for Lilly, and he was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna start my own business. I've been with Lilly for 30 years. I want out." I said, "Well, before you get out, why don't we do this? How do you get a stapler if you need one?" He goes, "Oh, it's easy. I give my admin a note, tell her I need a stapler. She puts in a requisition, and the next day they drop a stapler off at my desk." I said, "Well, how comfortable are you with getting your butt in a car and going to Office Depot and buying your own stapler?" Right? And he couldn't get his mind around the fact that nobody was gonna hand deliver a stapler to him. I said, "You should probably
Mhm.
stay
Mhm.
with the big company." Right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things, like, specific things that you really found were a change from the big company to, you know, being self-employed?
Yeah, great question. Because again, this is, if somebody were to ask me what my biggest challenge was, this definitely was my biggest challenge, was that mindset. And so things that I took for granted, right? Coming into the office and having conference calls set up for you, and your day pretty much laid out 80% uh, by others, is was my experience, and that's not always bad. And so that transition from, okay, I all these details that go into small business ownership, all these details uh, that that I once was able to delegate, if you will, or got to the point in my career where I was really good at delegating things like that. And so that right there was my biggest hurdle, was all of a sudden having to do those little things that I didn't know how to do. Right.
Yeah, kind of forgotten. They become atrophied skills.
Well
So,
said. That's exactly right. I love your example, Matt. That's a really good example
yeah.
of the
So
stapler.
so now you're starting the sales acceleration business where you're basically a one-man band, an army of one, doing your own thing, creating your own opportunities. And then you have the other where you're in a partnership buying a restaurant. Um, eh, what's the learning curve been in the restaurant world? Because that's a whole different
Yeah.
beast.
It it is, and for me, just to give a little bit of history on where my mindset was, what my thought pattern was at that point in time when I agreed to become part of that ownership group. My attitude, um, albeit very naive, was okay. Here's my investment. We'll see you in 10 years when we sell it, fellas. Yeah. So that was my misconception of what
Yeah.
what I was wanting to get out of things, and ended up being far more involved in the day-to-day operations, at least till the time that we got a general manager. And so, if there's one thing, it was truly the unknown. I had never been in the restaurant industry as a server or a bartender ever. Had never really had it was never drawn to it. And so now here I own a business where I'm in the middle of it, right? I'm in the thick of it. And it's still something. I don't want to say I don't enjoy it, but it's just not a good fit for me. So with regard to my sales acceleration practice, right? I have a true passion for I'll call it sales leadership, right? I have a true passion for sales leadership. So for me, uh, the outsourced VP of sales gig is far more enjoyable than my restaurant gig if and when I have to jump back into the operation there.
Yeah. Yeah. But knowing even though it's not enjoyable necessarily, your money's in it, how much do you have to jump in?
Right, eat the frog, right?
Yeah.
And so at this point, early on, it was on the day to day as far as getting it off the ground and all the details that go into that. It was definitely very involved day to day for call it call it 3 years. And now it's more emergencies or meetings with the GM, that kind of a thing that I'll get pulled in for. So really, gosh, Matt, I mean, it's maybe 2 hours a week that I'm actually hands on down there. So that's
Yeah.
that's been nice to not have to worry about as much.
All right. And so you have that, but let's go back to, you've learned how to arrange your day and you've grown your day. Um, what are some of the other lessons from from the clients that you've served at Sales Acceleration? What are some of the things that you've seen from them that have informed the way you run your business?
Oh yeah, that's great. I'll use one engagement in particular. That's where my story lies, and it was about a 2.5 year engagement, which is longer than many engagements I've been involved in. But it was about a 2.5 year engagement where, on the front end of things, it was truly a struggle for this owner to transition from being the sales hat wearer. He was wearing the sales hat, and the reason they brought me in was to wear that sales hat while he transitioned more into working on the business as opposed to in it. And he really struggled with that transition and giving it up. Um, and so just his ability to give it up, start to give it up, and then in turn see his sales results start to change in a positive way, and to see his belief right? Over the course of 2 for me, a touchdown engagement is to work myself out of a job, right? Quite a model where we'll come in and help it to a point where they feel they have to hire somebody full time to replace, and so I'll help with hiring my replacement. And in this case, it was a touchdown engagement where I ended up having to help hire my replacement, and just to see his growth throughout that whole process um, really made me more resilient with my business. Because there were times where I was like, "Yeah, he's not going to be able to. It's just not going to work." And so that's helped with my resiliency factor. Seeing gentlemen like him, get their business to a place that they did through hard work.
So Your Sales Acceleration business, what year did you open that? Or what year did you begin that?
August of 2018 is when I committed
All
to
right.
it.
So August of 2018. So you had a nice
Mhm.
20-month run before the government decided that COVID was shutting the world down.
Yeah, yeah.
Prior to COVID, did you feel confident in the way your business was situated?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're bringing me back to a time that was both exciting, the most excitement and most stress I've felt in my life about any kind of business. Because in the background, we've got this restaurant business that we're trying to keep open, right? All things considered. So this is going on in the background. But in the foreground with the sales acceleration business, I literally felt like at late 2019 is when I hit a critical mass. All of a sudden, boom, I've got 3 clients, which in my business, that's a full load.
Yep.
Um, I've got 3 strong clients, and it's the first time since at the end of prior year where I felt like, okay, I've got this. It's rolling, right? And sure enough, shortly thereafter is when that all went down and experienced a furlough with one. Uh, and so anyway, it was a real disruption in the flow and where I felt the business was at the time. But hey, it all worked out. Ended up working with uh, working with one of those clients through COVID, and another came back after the fact, and so it all worked out that it needed to, but it was kind of it was like, oh, not right now.
Yeah, it's obviously we work with very similar clients. Actually, we work with a couple of mutual clients. Um, Small business was not really prepared for a 2-year shutdown. We just weren't ready
Right,
for it.
right.
It changed a lot. So,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
it really
So,
did.
yeah. So if 2025 Patrick could sit down next to August 2018 Patrick and say, "Hey, tomorrow you're opening up your business and there's a lot that you could do, but here's the thing that you must do. Here's the one thing you need to focus on." What would that one thing be?
Hmm. Well, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, as to when I deal with sales professionals. If there's one thing that I would tell that, put my arm around that Patrick and say, it truly would be, hey, listen, keep your eye on your pipeline. In other words, it's something that we'll talk about with sales professionals, right? Hey, look, make sure we're keeping our eye on the pipeline. It was very easy for me once I was in an engagement, 2 engagements, 3 engagements. I found that the all of the work around the actual delivering of the engagement, right? Because we'll consult on what to do, and then we'll do the work oftentimes. And so to do the delivery takes shoot as much, if not more time than any part of it. And so it's been easy for me to get so headlong and so focused on delivering an engagement. All of a sudden I'm there going, oh my goodness, I have nothing in my pipeline. And there's a good possibility this engagement is at the end of the runway here. So I would tell that person to stick with the basics when it comes to making certain that you're focusing as much on your pipeline as you are on delivering the engagements, which they warned us about in training, of course, Matt.
Oh, yeah. It's so Lorraine Ball said it. So far, she has said it the best. You're never in the business you think you're in. You're in the business
Yeah,
of selling the business you think you're in. So if you're not selling
right.
marketing, you're never in the marketing business. If you're not in the fractional sales management sales business, then you're not in the fractional sales management delivery business. And that's
Yeah,
probably nobody. I think I might be one of the only people, but nobody actually gets into the adult world thinking, you know what, I want to be in sales.
yeah.
Everybody's got this. I want to do this other thing, and they end up in sales, and and
It's true.
so it's like,
It's
well,
true.
I guess this is where I am. So, but all right. So that's a quick 20 minutes. But if you were
Yeah.
to
Wow.
give any advice to a new or aspiring business owners, or any other tidbit you'd throw out there other than mind that pipeline, which is a good good reminder.
Yeah, if it's a very broad statement, but it's been true for me, and that is just continue to work hard on yourself, right? I mean, I've always been a big believer and have learned probably, through growth through suffering, right? That if my bucket isn't full, if my bucket's not full, I can't fill my daughter's bucket. I can't fill my wife's bucket. And so, when it's been very easy for me to get distracted with chasing what I'll call chasing rabbits, right? These different businesses and then a small child. And so yeah, it's just know that it's going to take some serious focus, to get the business off the ground. So yeah, um, it's been, it's been the best thing I've ever done in my life, Matt. No question about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing how, entrepreneurs are willing to give up that 40-hour a week job so that they can work 80 hours and make half as much.
I know. I can't tell you how many times I've looked in the mirror and said, "Good job, you bought yourself a full-time job. Way to go."
Yeah. Congratulations. You gave away a full-time job and then you paid to get one. So,
Yep, exactly. But I do it all the same. Uh, most of it, most of it.
yeah. Yeah. I have yet to talk to anybody who has started a business who said, "Man, I wish I had stayed working for the man."
That's rare. Yeah, that's not happened to me
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
And I've never said it.
That's important. All right.
Hey, it's
Well,
good to
hey,
see you, Matt. I appreciate you. I hope it all came through. There was a little bit of a delay at
yep,
times,
no,
but
we're
like you
we're
said, it'll
good.
all work.
So,
Great.
hey, let's wrap up. I'm going to remind everybody that's listening, you want more information about Patrick, his restaurant, or his sales acceleration business, you can find some links and notes over at defaultprofitable.com. If you're listening, 3 ways you can help. You can hit subscribe, you can leave a review, or you can share an episode. Patrick, thanks for being a guest.
Thanks, you, Matt.
I
Appreciate it.
enjoyed having you. And for people listening, we'll be back next week. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.